here. Earlier I had done a review of a wick type kerosene heater that you would use inside your home. Today I'm going to be doing a review of a 70,000 BTU heater, the type that you would use to heat a workshop or your garage. This is the Protemp Sunstream 70,000 BTU kerosene forced air heater. It's advertised as a radiant heater. We'll see about that. It looks to me like a standard Torpedo style forced air heater, except that it has a larger diameter so that it emits more radiant heat and a little bit less convection heat. Hopefully that makes it quieter and such. It gets pretty good reviews overall, but I want to try it out myself. So we're going to open this box and see what's inside. Before we open the box, I want to note here it says not for use in residential living areas or not adequately ventilated enclosed spaces. All of these type of heaters should emit some amount of carbon monoxide. They're not like a wick type heater that can safely be used indoors, but we're going to be checking that with a carbon dioxide and a carbon monoxide meter just to see about the claims of safety. Just going to also use my nose, which you on video can't use, but to see how much it stinks. This is a 70,000 BTU heater. The furnace in my house, which is a couple thousand square feet, it's only 35,000 BTUs because it's a well-insulated house. So this is twice as big as my furnace. It should be plenty big for a garage. And this note down here is also one of the reasons why I bought it. Factory tested for multiple fuels: kerosene, jet fuel, number 1 and number 2 fuel oil, and number 1 and number 2 diesel. And that should be very welcome to anybody wanting to use one of these things, because number 1 and number 2 diesel is far less expensive than kerosene in most cases. Now the reason that one of these heaters can use diesel fuel instead of kerosene is because it has a high pressure fuel injection pump, a lot like a diesel engine, that atomizes the air, or the fuel, that then combusts in the chamber. It doesn't require a wick to wick the fuel up like a wick type heater does, obviously. And I've actually done tests on that myself, trying diesel fuel in a wick type heater just to prove to myself that it doesn't work. Indeed, it does not work. But something like this shouldn't have that limitation. Because of the waxes and other aromatics and such, it will probably smoke a little more in number 2 diesel. Also, they add fuel additives to diesel that they don't add to kerosene to help lubricity and many other things in a diesel engine. Wick type heaters don't require that, and it just gums them up, so they don't add those to K1. But for a wick type heater, you want to run water clear K1 kerosene only. For a heater like this, you should be able to run diesel fuel. It'll require more cleaning and other things, but overall it should run adequately well. We're going to test that here today. But let's open the box and see what's inside. Now this particular design is very similar to the salamander style designs, or torpedo style, as many people call them. This one's kind of a hybrid between a radiant and a torpedo style heater. Looks like they give you a handle that must screw on here. The screw's got to be somewhere inside, but I'll just toss that aside for now. They give you, looks like, a user and service manual. And we'll page through this briefly before we actually open it up and take this out. Looks like here's the screws for the handle. I'll put those on quick here. Don't think anybody needs instruction on that. And congratulations! You have purchased the best portable heater on the market. I think they might be a little bit biased. But in any case, they give you a consumer helpline, which multiple people have stated that people actually answer this one. I'm not going to call it, but supposedly there are spare parts available, which is valuable because it does contain a high pressure fuel pump in here, and eventually things will fail and you want replacement parts. So that's a good thing. Apparently they have a website. I'm not going to go there, you're welcome to, but in any case, here's the heater. I'm going to put the handle on, pull this out of the box, and we'll take a look at it on my table, and then we'll take it out to the garage and see how it actually fires up. Well, it seemed to be packaged quite well in the box. I am pleased with that. The packaging will prevent it from getting damaged in most cases. On the other side of this heater, there is a large dent in it somewhere, and I got a good discount because of that dent. But normally a heater like this costs you somewhere around $250. I got this for significantly less for various reasons. But $250 is about the going price for a 70,000 BTU kerosene heater like this. And we're going to see what my impressions of this particular unit are. But before we do that, I am going to take a look at the user manual. We're putting the handle on, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. If anybody needs help with this, probably shouldn't be buying the heater, but yes, I'm putting the handle on. Now the nut certs do seem to be pretty good quality. They're nice quality brass, so are these screws. The handle seems plenty solid to move the heater around. But let's take a look at the manual, then we'll take a look at the actual heater. And here's what came with it for manuals. You get the actual user manual, a service manual, and a whole wad of warning stickers. All kinds of stuff in here. I'm sure that there's 1,000 different ways that you can kill yourself with any product, and they made sure to warn you against apparently every possible one. I guess if you use this as a nose picker, it could kill you. I don't know. But they give you this whole wad of stickers. I'm going to toss those aside. Oh, one more. Toss that aside. In any case, here's the actual manuals. Now this one's particularly interesting. This is a service center list. All the different places in the United States, I think only in this case, yes, only the United States in here, that you can service your heater, which is definitely nice to know, with all kinds of information on contacting all those places. So I'm going to save this. Hopefully I never have to use it, but I'm going to save it. It's nice that they give you that. And this is the actual manual. Now, as you'd expect, it comes with all sorts of warning labels in here, but it is well written, and it gives you a lot of information in here. They warn you about carbon monoxide and many other things. They tell you how to put the handle on. Really, do people need instructions on how to put a handle on? It's a piece of plastic and 2 screws. Come on, people. Anyway, they tell you other things here on how to use it. Fueling up the heater, they tell you to use kerosene. It's optimal. Here they say it's because that kerosene has been refined to virtually eliminate contaminants such as sulfur. That's completely untrue. Kerosene in the United States, as of this filming, is spec'd to be 500 ppm or less. Diesel fuel is 15 ppm or less. Diesel has a lot less sulfur. No, it's the other contaminants in diesel which will gum up your heater. It's not the sulfur. In any case, here they say that never use fuels such as benzene, alcohol, gasoline, camp stove, etc. These are volatile that can cause an explosion. Yeah, that'd be pretty stupid to put gasoline in something like this, but I guess they have to cover their butts. So you should only burn kerosene in something like this, or diesel if you're cheap. And I'm just going to see how it works on diesel. I can always clean it if it gums up. Obviously contractors and such run these things in diesel all the time, so it should work. But being a homeowner, I'm a little bit more picky on my maintenance than a contractor would be. They just care if it kicks out heat. I want it to burn cleanly. They say minimum ventilation opening needed. We're actually going to be doing some testing on this with a carbon dioxide meter and a carbon monoxide meter. Not many people on YouTube do this sort of thing, but I'm going to do it on this heater. They give you some other information on here. For example, it has a 7-minute cool down cycle when you shut it off. That's pretty important because that means that you cannot put this on a thermostat. It needs to cool off and cycle down. A heater like this is not designed to be put on a thermostat. It will thermal cycle and eventually it will fail. Every thermal cycle ages it. Over here they mentioned the spark plug. This is the igniter for it. Every 600 hours of operation needs to be cleaned or inspected. And they give you the gap and such in here, but this makes a lot of sense because this runs on 60 Hertz. It probably fires at 120 times a second continuously as this heater runs to ensure that it's always lit. That's my assumption. That's how the Torpedo style heaters work anyway, typically. But if you think of an automobile, this spark plug runs continuously as long as you're driving your vehicle. And here they say 600 hours is probably a cheap spark plug because it is a consumer device. But that's a pretty reasonable lifetime for a spark plug. We'll move on. They give you a bunch of troubleshooting, some diagrams in general of how the thing works. I'm not going to disassemble it here unless it doesn't work, but overall this is a pretty good manual. They have a nice wiring diagram in here to help you troubleshoot. They have a nice disassembly exploded diagram here. And if you don't speak English, they have a whole bunch of other languages in here. I'm not going to cover those, but let's take a look at the heater next. And here's the actual Protemp Sunstream 70,000 BTU radiant / convection kerosene heater. It has a little short cord whip on here, so obviously you need to use an extension cord. That's fine. They do have a fuel gauge, which is pretty nice, so you don't have to open it up and tip it around to see how much fuel is left. If you run these things dry, it can damage the fuel pump, because they do have a fuel pump, so you should never run them empty. Always make sure that you have adequate fuel. We've got a little outlet here, so you can plug something into it, shop light or something. Wouldn't plug a whole lot of load into that. I think the manual says 5 amps maximum. I'm sure that's conservative, but obviously you don't want to use that for air compressor or something. They have warning labels on here, which is kind of funny because, well, there's a bunch of warning labels in the user manual. Event for the fan. I do want to note that there are two fans in this thing. There is an inner casing that contains the flame that has a fan, and there's an outer casing that cools the external of the unit that has a separate fan. So there are two fans in here for safety. That's a good design. I like that. Again, the handle is nice and solid. This whole thing weighs, I don't know, 30 pounds or something like that. Pretty solidly built as far as I can tell. Air intake for the fans on both sides. More warning labels, just in case you didn't have enough of them. Here's the fuel cap. Looks like it's got a rubber gasket on it. And just an empty galvanized fuel tank, about what you'd expect. Never use biodiesel. I guess that's an important note. Some people may not realize that, but biodiesel is not going to be a good idea for a heater like this. They've got power switch with instructions that I'm sure nobody reads, but the important part is you want to power it up with the switch and power it down with the switch. You do not want to just unplug it from the wall because it needs a cool down cycle. If you don't do that, it will damage the heater. Any heater like this needs a cool down cycle, otherwise it will heat up and it can crack, cause damage to the oil and the fan bearings, etc. That sort of thing. It ages it prematurely. A lot of people do that to the heaters and they fail early because of it. But in any case, I'm going to zoom in on this label here and we're going to read that next. Here we have the model number, the voltage and amperes that it draws, 1.7 amps. Power consumption, BTUs per hour, 70,000 BTUs. Well, I sure hope so. That's what it said in the box. Fuel tank capacity, 4 gallons. Now, it's important to note that kerosene and diesel has about 140,000 BTUs per gallon. So if it's a 70,000 BTU heater and it holds 4 gallons, that means it will run for 8 hours. Max heating time, 7 hours. Well, what the heck, right? Perhaps they're conservative on the 7-hour rating because they don't want you to run the fuel tank dry. If you do that, you can damage the pump. Or perhaps it's not 100% combustion efficient. And because it is a pump that atomizes it instead of a wick, I'm sure it's not 100% efficient. Max outlet temperature, 1040 degrees Fahrenheit, 560 Celsius. That's also interesting. I may have a way to check that, but that's pretty warm. In any case, let's take this out to the garage, fuel it up, and see how it actually performs.